Hello and welcome to another episode of Mischief Maker.
Woohoo!
Hello. Hi.
There we are. I enjoyed, you might hear, dear listener, the matching of energy from the two Henrys we have here. I'm absolutely jacked to be here. So I'm in the room with the wonderful Henry Shields and the wonderful Henry Lewis. Hello, Henry Lewis.
Hello.
Hello, Henry Shields.
Hi.
You may recognise these two titans of comedy. They have written many, many shows, lots of which I've been in. I sort of felt awkward there that I was kind of introduce you, but I know you.
Yeah, but that's the thing. That's the thing to do.
I feel like if you're listening to this, they probably know you.
I'd hope so.
No, that's too much. That's too arrogant, isn't it? But basically, these guys, and, you know, me by proxy, are the geniuses behind the sort of goes wrong.
And that's not too arrogant.
No, because that's about me, mate. So, yeah, I'm talking to Henry Shields and Henry Lewis today, who have written a new show called The Comedy About Spies, which, more importantly, listener, I will be in. And we're just here today to chat about the writing process for that. And so, yeah, why don't we kick off by you guys just telling us a little bit, like, what is The Comedy About Spies? Give us the headlines.
My goodness. Well, so it is a comedy show about spies, as you might have guessed.
There we are.
And it is about Cold War spies. So it's set in London in the 1960s. And yeah, so it's set against the backdrop of the Cold War. And it's mainly set in a hotel. Basically, I mean, I won't obviously tell you the whole story because you have to come and see it and find out. But a top secret file for something called Project Midnight goes missing from MI6.
Yeah.
And you find out that there's a handover that's going to happen. This file is going to find its way to Moscow. And so it's about a group of spies sort of descending on this hotel in London to try and stop that happening. And some other characters get kind of embroiled in there's lots of confusions and rooms are bugged, but they're not quite the right rooms. And so some ordinary civilians are embroiled in the mission.
I'd agree with that.
That is
pretty
That's
much
it. That's the setup, yeah.
Nice. And how do you guys feel like this is different to other Mischief shows?
Well, it's in the same vein or similar vein to Comedy About a Bank Robbery, which we did back in 2017, I think.
Yeah.
16 maybe? All the way back then.
We got a dates guy in the room. His name's Nathan. He's going to be checking dates for us.
When did we do that?
It was 16 to 17, wasn't it?
I think 16 to 17. So it's in a similar vein to that, which is very Marx Brothers-esque kind of comedy, very fast-paced, verbal and visual gags. So different in terms of a bit less on the slapstick, and it's not in the goes wrong style, goes wrong kind of being its own thing. So in that sense, it fits into one family of our shows and not the rest.
Sure.
And this one in particular is a very ambitious project. I mean, all of our projects are ambitious, but I confidently say that this is the most ambitious show we have done, because I think just in terms of scale, the thing is huge, and yeah, we're trying to do massive stuff in this show, and we always try and do bigger stuff, and I think we're kind of trying to top ourselves each time.
Wow. Okay.
It's certainly, definitely in terms of the physical production. So David Farley, the same set designer as did Bank Robbery, is doing this. And I sort of said to him at the end of the workshop, I think it's sort of probably a pretty sort of similar size show to Bank Robbery. And he said, no, it's twice the size. And I was
wow.
I didn't realise it was twice the size. But it's a bigger theatre. I mean, we were at Noël Coward Theatre, it's 1,000 seats, much bigger than the Criterion. Because when we did Bank Robbery at the Criterion, it was all about packing a big show into a small space, because at the Criterion there's no fly tower, so you can't take any scenery out upwards. You can only take things out to the side, and one of the wings, the stage right wing, is very narrow.
I remember.
So you can't. So it's all about making things unfold and stuff. And so some of that similar sort of devices are being used with the set here to really kind of make sure we can pack in. I mean, how many locations are there? God, there must be, like, including the sort of mini sub-locations, there must be 20 locations.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Yeah.
Huge amount of locations, and like you say, with Comedy About a Bank Robbery, we were trying to fit a big show into a small theatre. Now we're trying to fit a big show into a big theatre, so we have to expand the show to fill it. We have to make sure the show is big enough and impressive enough, and the scale of the show is enough to justify being in this massive space that the Noël Coward Theatre is.
And do you feel that you've achieved that, or have you expanded beyond the theatre?
Have we expanded beyond the theatre?
Yeah, like, can we fit the show in the theatre?
I think the challenge is going to be, can we make a show big enough to fit this huge theatre.
Oh, wow, okay.
Because it's a big space.
Well, you remember, you got me, guys.
Yeah, we got the performance of Dave Hearn.
I take up a lot of space.
Taking up 80% of the space.
Yeah.
60 cubic meters.
Yeah. You'll just see on David Farley's design, just insert Dave Hearn, and it will fill it. So filling so a big show in a small space, and now a big show in a big space. And do you feel like, with the location changes and stuff, how do you feel that will affect the kind of rhythm of the show? Because I remember with Bank Robbery, the kind of set itself almost became a character within the show, and actually just like the reveal of the bank was just a kind of whole moment in itself, and we sort of had to build a sequence around giving that space. I remember in the tech we got a round of applause from us because we were like, wow, how have you done that? Is there a similar kind of vibe here?
I think that there will be a very dramatic reveal of the bedrooms, I can say, without giving too much away. I think that will be an impressive moment, I'd hope. And there will be lots of different sets coming on and off. And we always try to avoid any kind of interruption to the flow of the show.
Sure.
So what we've done is very carefully go through the script with the designer and with the director to make sure that there is never a dead moment. There's never a drop beat. So if the scene is changing, there's always something happening in front of that change or as part of that change.
Great.
So I don't know what we'll get in terms of things folding out of other things. There might be a bit of that. That would be nice. But there will always be something to look at, and the action will never cease.
It will never cease.
Never see. There's 2 or 3 big kind of movement sequences as well that are kind of transition from one place to another, and so there is a bit of that kind of playing with the space all the time. And I think certainly in the second act in particular, I think it'll be fun because I think we'll be like a spy movie. We'll be going from one location to the next, to the next, to the next all the time. So I think it will, and there's a few real surprising places that we end up as well. So I think it'll be good.
There's a real challenge in Act 2 of that section that we haven't really done at all, other than like we've read it in workshop.
Yeah.
But there's jumping between locations in that sequence. There must be 10 different locations we jump to within a few minutes. Back and forth around the place. So that'll be fun.
It was fun to read for sure.
Yeah.
And so why? I think I know the answer to this, but why the Cold War? Why spies? Why London?
I mean, I think what worked with Bank Robbery was to have a really strong kind of genre in order to kind of, something that people knew well in order to kind of play with. And I think we thought that Spy would be really good as a follow-on to Bank Robbery. I thought that was a fun genre. I mean, London, I think we wanted to go UK this time because Bank Robbery was set in the US. Yeah. So we thought it'd be fun to kind of do the UK. And the Cold War kind of felt like the right kind of environment to do like an ensemble spy story. Like I think sort of like a Tinker Tailor Soldier spy kind of vibe, where there's lots of different, rather than a sort of, I guess, than a sort of like more you might think of maybe a more modern thing of like a Bond or a sort of Born Identity or whatever, where it's about one character. This is more about a group of characters, lots of different spies from different places, Russian spies, Soviet spies, American spies, British. Yeah,
there was also a discussion in the writing process about exactly when we would set it, and we did kind of toy with the idea of going 1940s at one point.
Yeah, we were talking about Second World War spies.
Yeah. And we're thinking about it being Second World War and being German spies in London during the Blitz kind of period. And it nearly went that way. And then we ended up kind of reverting back to the 60s Cold War because that just felt like the more obvious answer. Like if you said to an audience, this is about 2 groups of spies spying on each other, the thing that I think immediately comes to mind is Americans and Russians Cold War.
Yeah.
And we wanted to just hit the genre on the head, with the most obvious answer so that everyone can key in immediately to what it is and where it is.
Yeah, it feels like from the workshop you get it pretty quickly. But also, I suppose, as soon as you set anything in the Second World War, it becomes about the Second World War.
Yeah, true.
And not really about the spies.
Yeah. And actually, look, now with the way it's panned out, I'm glad we didn't do that because Operation Mincemeat has arrived and been a huge success and would have been in exactly the same time and genre as them.
Yeah, I was thinking that and I didn't know if you were going to say it. But I was thinking it, but I agree with you.
But we were, at the start of the process, I'd not heard of that show because it didn't exist when we started writing this.
So when did you start writing it? How long have you been working on it?
It's been a long process, probably the longest writing process we've had on anything we've done. Because we started in the autumn of...
It was lockdown.
21, right? Yeah.
Is that right? Autumn 21?
I think so.
We were in lockdown. So Nathan. Where did that happen?
Well, there was a lot. No,
there were
many lockdowns.
There were.
21, that works.
Yeah, we got a thumbs up from Nathan, so that's right.
I think so. Yeah, because it was when it was when I was doing the Apollo run of Magic Goes Wrong. This post-COVID Magic Goes Wrong run.
Right. But yeah, I remember writing a lot of it on Zoom initially, and we've picked it up and put it down quite a lot over the years because we've had other projects that have come in and sort of taken the time. So it's been a very drawn-out writing process with sort of bursts of energy and sort of frantic writing periods in the middle. You do a month or two of real work on it and then put it aside again. But it has had a very long gestation period.
But it's been quite good though, because I think it's quite good to that's Taika Waititi's like advice on writing, isn't it? I've seen him in a few interviews say this, and he says that no one ever does it. But he says that his advice for writing is that you should write something, and then get it kind of finish it up, write it how you want to write it, and then put it in a drawer, forget about it for like 2 or 3 years, and then take it out and then reread it, and then kind of read it a few times, and then rewrite it completely from scratch from your memory of what it is.
Yeah.
Because it sort of means that all of your sort of preconceptions and that stuff you kind of forget, and actually like you just come back to it, and then you can actually condense it and make it kind of and add more to it. And so it's weird actually that like this process has been a bit like that, and we've not put it away for that long because we've probably picked it up every 6 months, or sometimes there's 3 months between rewrites or whatever. We did the workshop and everything. But definitely, I think it has been really good to just put it down and pick it up again, and I think you don't become attached to stuff in the same way. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, well, that's from ages ago. Do you know what I mean? And I think therefore it's easier to be like, actually, that's not very good. Let's cut that. And do you know what I mean? I think it's been
have a kind of fresher view of it.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that with stuff that I've written, and I've left it. I forgot that I'd written it, and then come back and then like read it, and then been like, had both the experience of, oh wow, did I write that? That's really good, and being like, oh, that's obviously cut that. But then at certain times I imagine when I was writing the bit that I now seems obvious to cut, that you come back to it and you're like, oh yeah, at the time I probably wouldn't have made that call, but with some distance.
Yeah, I had that exact experience the other day when I found the printed copy of the first ever script I wrote for my pitch for the Cornley sitcom.
Yeah.
Back when it was when they were an acting troupe, and when Robert had just taken the Scouts into the woods and that whole thing.
Yeah.
Had Robert, taking the Scouts into the woods as he was head of the Scout group, chucking a load of knives and saying, "There you go, make your way home." And I wrote that years and years ago, and sort of showed it to you guys, and then we rewrote it into a proper pitch that then never went anywhere. But I was actually pleasantly surprised. I read it and was like, oh, I see. There's some good stuff in here. It's actually not bad. Yeah. And I also can see exactly what's wrong with it and why it doesn't really work.
Yeah.
We also reread Chef and Sous Chef.
We do.
Every year or so
Chef, Sous Chef.
We dust that one off.
Chef,
this is something we wrote
very good. Yeah, this was
years ago.
Wasn't that lockdown as well?
Yeah, possibly it was.
It was another lockdown madness script.
Chef and Sous Chef is a sort of spoof.
It's not Chef and Sous Chef. It's Chef/Sous Chef.
Sorry, yes.
Chef Sous Chef.
Yes, absolutely. The slash makes it quite sort of quite trendy, I think.
Chef Sous Chef.
It's a sort of comedy, I guess, almost like a spoof of Bake Off or Master Chef, I suppose, because it's cookery more generally, and with all these ludicrous characters and these two hosts who sort of hate each other.
Yeah.
It was funny.
It's
so
funny.
Absolutely nuts.
Every time we reread that, I read it, again, like a while ago now, but having put it away for a long time, and I read it and went, this is the best thing we've ever written.
It is funny.
It's so funny.
How has it not made it?
We've never shown it to anyone.
Yeah, why not?
I know,
and you're choosing this moment to reveal. Chef to Chef.
I think we wrote it as a 3 with John, and I think John didn't like it. I think we got to the end and John was like, this is too dark for me.
Okay,
so we sort of put it aside. I think it is it's got some edge.
It definitely does have some edge. It's definitely funny though. It's a sort of weird, I don't know, but I think it would be a hard thing to convince someone to get behind because it's a sort of spoof cookery show. I don't think they're kind of like in high demand, but we should do it.
It could be done.
I don't know, cookery shows are very, very popular. Like those kind of, like you've got, I know it's not cookery, but you've also now got on your MasterChef and your Bake Off, you've got the sewing one and the pottery stuff. So like those kind of shows.
Yeah, it's a comedy version of that. Imagine if Great British Bake Off, like as brilliant as a Great British Bake Off is, imagine if that was a scripted comedy.
Yeah.
It's ripe.
Someone's written a musical. So, you know.
Oh, have they?
The Bake Off musical,
yes.
Yeah. The Noël Coward, in fact.
There we are. Not an advert for them, though. That's our show. So actually, yeah, you touched on. So you wrote Chef Sous Chef with John.
Yeah.
But you didn't write this with Jono. So obviously, you guys usually come as a trio.
Yes.
But yeah, what was that? This sounds cruel. I was about to say, was that an active choice? Yeah, but I imagine it was, to do with
it was not
timing and everything.
It was because at the very initial, the first sort of meeting we had about writing this, John was there and he was part of it, and the intention was for him to be part of it. But he just had stuff going on in his life at the time.
Sure,
he was in the process of they were about to have their first kid, or early on. I think Lucy was nearly pregnant or was pregnant at that time. But life got in the way, and John said, I'll put this one aside. And it's tricky because at the time it was just one of the other many scripts that we wrote.
Yeah,
because we wrote that, and we also wrote Chef Sous Chef, which has obviously gone nowhere. Hasn't left the computer.
This interview is turning into an ad for Chef Sous Chef. I've been given the brief to talk about spies and ask about spies, but
Chef Sous Chef is such a good title.
Yeah, it is, and it's fun to say.
We've got to get Chef Sous Chef out. We'll do a reading of it. But anyway, But obviously we wrote that and multiple other scripts during lockdown and around that time, and you never know what's going to go anywhere. So John was part of Chef Sous Chef, and that one's turned out to not be a winner yet.
Sure.
And Spies has gone ahead to obviously have this big life, but there was never the intention to cut the poor guy out. And he'll be in. He's still in the team, and we'll be writing together on the next show.
And do you find? Yeah, how did you find the process? I imagine in some ways it's easier having less voices in the room, but then in other ways you probably missed his input. How was the?
I don't know. Like, it's sort of, we worked together for such a long time. We know each other so well that it's kind of, I don't know. It's a slightly different. I suppose slightly different dynamic, because if there's three of you, you can kind of have. You sort of sometimes, if there's a decision, you might have two people saying one thing and one person saying the other, and you kind of go, oh well, obviously you just kind of go with the majority, whereas you don't have a kind of a majority. But then I don't know. I think we've kind of, it's been. I think we've been on the same page about what the show is.
Yeah, really. It doesn't feel like there's been much disagreement between us about what it is.
No,
but it has also been a very long process, and I wonder if it would have just been truncated if there'd been John in the room.
Yeah,
maybe we would have just moved through things faster and kind of found the answers quicker.
Yeah. Well, John is often the one in the room who's kind of. I think you've said that. I mean, he's often the one who's like, well, let's just go with this. Let's try this. And I think
you and me have more of a tendency to ponder. Yeah. There was a lot of pondering during this process. We're more of the ilk of like, we'll just sit and wait until we get the right idea. If we haven't got it, we'll just keep hammering away at this one problem until we figure it out. And John will just kind of force us to go, what, just stick something down and we'll move on.
He's the engine room.
It's
just like keep moving.
I think if John had been part of it, it probably would have just been, we probably would have ended up with a similar kind of script, but it would have taken us 2 years less to get it done.
And there would have been more trout down gags.
There would have been
obviously.
I don't think there are any at the moment, are there?
Which I'm absolutely furious about, by the way. Livid, absolutely livid.
Has come down.
But just to jump back for a sec as well. So you said it in 1963, and we kind of touched on this before. Maybe I don't know if we've ever done this on the podcast or if we just had a chat personally. But there's something about specifically comedy and technology, right? You don't want too much technology to make things easy, right? So was that part of setting it in the 60s?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms, I mean, I don't know. I mean, with spy stuff, I think obviously there's lots of that, like gadgets is part of it. So I think there is stuff to be done with sort of modern gadgets. I suppose you could definitely do comedy with super high tech gadgets, but I think it was more fun to go for that kind of early Bond kind of era. And in fact, one of the characters is auditioning for Bond, and so that's kind of part of the reason it's set because that was the first ever Bond movie in the beginning of the 60s.
62.
Yeah. And so
we got the date guy in the room. We can
Dr.
fact
No.
check that.
I mean, I should know this because it's in the script, but I think Dr. No came out in 62.
Yeah, and so we're now in 61 in the play. Yeah, so it's like the year before.
We're in like production.
Okay.
For Dr.
Pre-production.
No. No, they're casting Dr.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, but no, I think it's fun. I think it's fun to play with stuff in that era, stuff in that era, and what they had and the technology and stuff. I think it's good.
Certainly helps because it's a stage play. Because if you were to do a modern spy thing, like a Bourne Identity thing on stage,
Yeah.
it would be a very different tone. Because you'd be jumping around constantly. You'd have people just on the phone to each other all the time.
Yeah,
So obviously
yeah.
you use a phone to contact people
Yeah.
rather than going to speak to them or writing them a letter or whatever. And that's not very fun on stage to watch two characters just constantly having phone calls.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I suppose a modern day spy movie is one of the big things, and we talked about this in Mischief Movie Night, actually, is that it jumps around the world quite a lot and is in different locations. And actually, when you're trying to do I know this isn't a bedroom fast, but a sort of multi-location fast, but you're trying to keep it sort of fairly contained. And then
Yeah.
suddenly you're in, Paris.
There has to be some, for comedy's sake, there has to be some consistency to the locations, and for practical sake, we're in a theatre, we can't have massive different sets every 5 minutes. So you have to have an excuse to stay in the same place for long enough, and certainly being in the 60s does do that, because it is more of it's a Cold War thing, so it's not like there's an active sort of heroes and villains fighting each other in war or anything like that, or you'd have in a James Bond movie. It's more people sneaking and trying to get one up on the other person, trying to bug them, and
Sort of spy games.
Yeah, it's spy games. It's sneaky, high stakes, low energy, if that makes sense.
Mischief Theatre, high stakes, low energy. I've always thought of us as maximum effort, minimum return.
Terrible.
Yeah. We don't get a lot back, but we put a lot in. I also overestimate as well when people ask me. I'm like, probably 90% of the gags we put in get cut until we find the right ones, which is, I think, too high. I think probably 90% of my gags get cut.
No, I think I don't know. I think it's good to cut stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think it's good to try stuff and not be too attached to it and stuff. But no, I think but loads of stuff ends up going in that we.
Yeah, from the first draft, 90% probably isn't far off. I
Really?
hope that we're a bit better now. Maybe it's more like we keep 20 or 30% of the first draft through to the end. But it is, something like that, a low number, because it all gets rewritten.
And then probably more will go in previews, right, or get added. And, and once you get it in front of an audience,
it's a huge thing, to put it in front of an audience. I think it's such a kind of big learning experience, isn't it? You immediately kind of go, especially with comedy, where it's the audience are laughing all the time, or not, as the case may be, and then you work out actually, this is where it drops a bit. This is where it kind of picks up. This is where we need to move things around or whatever. So it's really important. We did that. So we had the workshop process we had for this. We had 2 or 3 audiences come in.
3,
throughout our 6-week workshop that we did end of 2024, and it was really useful, I think, to get it in front of an audience, try it out, see what works.
What's your feeling, I guess, as a writer? Because obviously you guys are in it as well, and I know when I'm coming into a workshop or doing a reading or whatever, I feel like my job is to just kind of do the best I can with the words on the page. But for you guys, there must be a kind of different kind of feeling, because you've got yourselves as actors trying to give a good performance, and you obviously know the script really well. But then at the point of when it's being read in front of a producer, how do you feel as writers? Is that quite nerve-wracking, or do you feel like it's ready, or do you feel like you want to wait until you know it's ready, or do you just get it out there whenever you can?
I know it can be nerve-wracking, but I think it's also good to get people to hear it as early as possible, and get feedback, and either people like it, which is great, or people don't like it and they've got thoughts, in which case you can kind of start to bring those in, We did several readings of this, didn't we, before the workshop?
Quite a lot.
It was like 4 or 5 maybe.
Yeah.
Lots of different drafts. I'm always quite excited for a reading. I'm excited to show it. It's like you're excited to show the bits that you know are going to work. You have a real inkling are going to work. And you're nervous to show the bits that you're like, I'm not sure about that. And sometimes it's a real treat, because you go, the bit that I wasn't sure about turned out to be brilliant.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's death.
But do you feel that in the room, even in a small room with your friends reading stuff, you feel those moments?
A little bit. But when it's just us, when we have usually our initial readings are just the Mischief core people, just a few people, that's always fine, because we know everyone's going to be very understanding if there's stuff that's bad, because everyone will go, you'll figure it out later. Slightly more nerve-wracking when you've got the producers in who are going to be a bit more, if there's too many of those moments that don't work, they'll go, no, it's just not good.
Sure. Yeah. And how do you feel the script changed from, because it was a 6-week workshop, right?
Yeah, it was, 6 weeks.
Shields is laughing because I've got my hand sort of on my midriff, but it looks quite sinister.
You really look like you were just pinching your own penis.
There's a my trousers have rucked. Okay, dear listener, this is being filmed. All right, I just want to say that as well. My trousers have rucked.
If you're listening to this and you missed that, you can check it
You
out.
can see it live.
And see that for the last 5 minutes, Dave's been holding his little ruck,
The little ruck of my trousers
naturally pinching.
pinched between thumb and fore. And quite gently as well.
It was like quite a little, like a choice, like a little power move.
Yeah.
I'll hold that.
So how do you feel when...
I had to point it out because I thought you don't want that
No, I
to
saw...
continue for another hour.
I saw Shields' eyes flick down, and I was like, "Why is he looking at my crotch?" Oh, I see. I'm pinching my little ruck. What was I saying?
I completely missed the question.
Okay, my hands are away. They're on the arms of the chair. So,
What was it?
the question was, I don't think I finished the question
I'm
actually,
so
Shields,
sorry.
before you stared at my knob. My question was going to be, how do you feel? So you did like 4 readings of the script, presumably got some feedback from us, probably some amazing feedback, particularly from me, and then from the producers and all that kind of stuff. So you go away, you do your rewrites. Actually, I was going to jump. Let's stick with that for now. So yeah, once you do the reading and you get your producer's notes and you get your brilliant notes from me, like, is there a feeling? Does it always kind of feel the same once you finish that reading, or is there sometimes a feeling of frustration, or are you just like, oh, there's not much to change at all, or yeah, there's loads of work still to do?
I remember the first reading of Spies was very positive. I think everyone was really, really kind of keen on it, and we were very excited, and it felt quite fresh and stuff. And I think we then did another one and another reading, and then we sort of more and more people came, and it was I think, being honest, I think our producers were unsure at the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think we were a bit like, oh no, we think it is good. Do go for it. And then after the workshop,
Henry Lewis hardballing.
But we did. That's probably why we did a couple more readings than we would normally do, because I think we felt it was a little way off, and there definitely was work to do on it. But then at the workshop, they were very, very happy with it. I think, and really, you know. Not like baffled, but they were like no,
surprised.
they were surprised.
They were pleasantly surprised, by how well it went.
Yeah.
Yes, I remember being in the room at that point and just being like, because I thought the show was great, but obviously it is really hard when you're in it, right? To sort of know if it's any good or not. On like, it's hard also to extract yourself from it as an actor, because if you feel like you're doing a good job, but maybe you're in a show that's not very good, you don't really know until someone sees everything. And yeah, I remember after that the kind of I think surprise is a fair assessment of just like, oh, that was really good actually.
I think the audiences, the test audiences who came to the workshop, I think were really positive, and there was a lot of positive feedback, and everyone really enjoyed it. And I think it was, I don't know, I certainly felt quite relieved, because I was kind of like, we'd stuck our neck out to be, and it had been quite an expensive workshop. We'd built a lot of set, and we'd sort of really done, we'd done a number on it. So for investors and stuff to come and be like, yes, I definitely want to, invest. And I think we ended up oversubscribed on it. People really wanted to sort of put money and stuff. That was really nice, because we were just like, oh yeah, people do believe it. I think
it was a relief. I mean, I don't know if he'll be happy for us to say this, but I can say that Kenny, I think, came to the workshop having funded the whole thing. He came to the workshop expecting to have to let us down gently, having to say, well done guys, but it's not going to work.
But I think that's a good thing to share, because I think that, like, I don't think Kenny will mind, because he is, he has a lot of love for us, and we've known him for years and years. But also, he at his heart, he's a producer of theatre, and he's only going to make things that he's not going to do anyone a favour for, like, however much money it costs to make a massive show.
But also, like, as a tribute to him, I think, like, even though he was really unsure about it, he still, as you say, he funded the workshop and believed in it.
I think
to kind of get it to the next.
it speaks well for him.
This
thing that he wasn't sure about, he put a lot of money and a lot of time and effort into, because he trusted us as a group to figure it out. And from his perspective, you guys have the start of an idea, but it's not quite right. Here's a load of support. Give us a chance to try and make it work.
And I suppose time as well. Like, I remember being quite shocked that the workshop was
6
weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were quite bored in that last week. We were just like, oh, what do we do now?
Well, yeah, it became this mad drive to get the show ready for the performances because we had all these. It turned out we then had all these investors coming that we hadn't planned on, and we had all of these the theatres and stuff all coming. We thought it would be like a closed workshop just for us.
Yeah.
It turned out to be basically a showing of most of the show.
Well, it was a weird workshop because we had. We did a week. We did a week, and then on the Thursday or Friday, the first week, Kenny said, "Oh, Delphort McIntosh are interested." The theatre group,
of course,
Cameron McIntosh's theatre group, who own the Noël Coward and many other theatres, and so they said, "Well, the CEO William Village is going to come in next week with his assistant, and I think someone else."
His name William Village.
William Village.
That is
It's
such a
great
pleasant
name,
name to
isn't
say. William Village.
Hello, William Village.
And
Good improv name.
It is a good improv name, but he was lovely. He came in and so he came in, I think, on the second Tuesday. So we'd only been in workshop for, I think we'd missed a day as well. So we'd been like 5 days in the workshop. So we obviously we weren't ready to show the whole show at that point, but we did a reading of the first half.
We did the first half, I think.
We sort of did it on its feet with scripts in hand.
We did the first half on its feet
Right.
extremely quickly. We rushed that, got it on its feet, and managed to get a passable show together in record time.
Yeah.
And then we read the second half.
Yeah.
Actually, no, we didn't even read the second half.
You described the second half.
I described the entire second half of the show.
And just sort of and gave the story. And then they said, okay, we'll have a think. And then we found out, I think, the next day that they were going to give us the theatre.
Yeah.
So that was really weird because that happened right at the beginning of the process. We were very fortunate in that sense. But then we sort of had, and we were sort of so it then changed the process because originally the process was going to be we're going to work towards these showings and then theatres would come.
Yeah.
But we already had the theatre, so then we were kind of like, okay, we've sort of got a bit more time now to just try things out. But then investors were going to come, so it was more about the showings again.
It became this drive to get the show something to show, which was really helpful because it pushed us to just work really fast and iron out all the kinks as quickly as we possibly could. But it was a very, very stressful experience. Personally, I found it exhausting and stressful.
Of course.
And then all the showings happened in the kind of 5th week.
Yeah.
And then, as you say, the 6th week, we suddenly had nothing to do. So we did it. And we were a bit bored.
We'll just sit around.
So we started doing all the weird stuff. We tried sort of experimental. We tried a completely different scene that didn't work.
Yeah, what a luxury that was. I remember you... we'll actually come back to that because I do have a question about that. But also, some comedy side quest, that both those announcements that Kenny said that the guys were coming in from Noël Coward and that we'd got the Noël Coward, I missed both of those announcements.
Did he?
So at both points, I walked into the room and everyone was sat around the table with Kenny giving a big speech, and he was like, "So congratulations!" And then everyone was like, "Yes," and I was like, "Oh, whose birthday is it?
Oh, no.
What's going on?"
I didn't realise you were out of the room.
Yeah, I missed both. I think both of them I'd like gone to the bathroom, and then by the time I come back, it happened.
Kenny picks his moments. He waits
does.
until you're out of the room.
He really does.
Dave's gone. I'll do it now.
It's gone quickly. I've got great news. No one share it with him. But yeah, so that was the really interesting thing for me as an actor. Actually, I'll probably talk about this more with Matty DiCarlo, who's the director, when we do an interview with him. But the thing that I pushed that he didn't quite understand was I was always wanting to know what the difference. Sorry, I knew the difference, but I wanted to know when we were rehearsing or when we were workshopping. Because for me, my brain as an actor goes into two different modes. Like rehearsal for me is sort of like contribute, but ultimately sort of shut up and listen. And then workshop is a bit more exploratory of going, okay, here's a bad idea, let's try it. And workshopping feels a little more time consuming, as where rehearsal feels a bit more driven and kind of practice. But how is it for you guys as writers? Because obviously you're going to go away and do big rewrites on the script, as where as an actor I just perform what I'm given, right? So did you go into it thinking we're going to have to rehearse this script for a showing at the end, or the script is going to be very different from start to finish?
I think we knew it was going to be very different. It usually is. So yeah, it's really just about sort of just testing it, getting it up on its feet, seeing it, seeing what works. Lots of ideas come in, and then we would, then at the end of the day, often we go away, spend an hour or whatever rewriting the section that we've done that day. And sometimes the rewrites are significant, sometimes they're smaller, but it varies.
Yeah, we fully expect to do a ton of rewriting during a workshop process and during a rehearsal process and during a preview process. Like there'll be lots more rewrites to come. That's just the nature of comedy, because when you think about when you're a comedy writer, you spend a lot of time sitting in a room at a computer trying to imagine an audience reacting to what you're writing and doing your best. And, the more you practice it, the more you do it, the better you get at that. And I think we're pretty good at it now. I have a pretty good judgment on like whether a joke is going to land and how it's going to land and what the laugh's going to be like and how that will feed into the next bit. But, you get it wrong. You get it wrong a lot.
Yeah.
And you can't get that right every time. And there's plenty of stuff where you think, I've nailed that. That's a golden joke. There's a big laugh there. Silence in the room. People sometimes don't even register that it was a joke. And you just
blitz through it.
It was not clear enough that was a joke. That's happened many times.
Yeah, I always say it whenever I do like Q&As and stuff, that the audience is the best director for comedy, because they'll just tell you what the rhythm is and what's funny and what's not.
Which is a very helpful thing about comedy. You have someone there all the time telling you what works and what doesn't. And there's an objective view every night from an audience, what is good and what is bad.
Yeah.
It's also like, as well, it's not just like, is the joke funny or not? Like, there's trade-offs. Like, sometimes you've got like, well, we've got this big funny joke in the middle of the second act. But in order to get that big joke, we've got to have this moment and this moment and this moment.
Sure.
3 other moments earlier on in the play, and only one of those might be funny, and the other 2 might not be. So you're kind of balancing: is it worth having that moment? And obviously, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of jokes in a show, but in terms of one little comedy strand, you're balancing: is that payoff worth this? And then, but also you like, quite often a lot of the rewriting is in the beginning quarter of the show, because that's where all the later callbacks are being set up, but you don't want 25% of the show at the beginning to be sort of laugh free. So you've got to kind of balance it, I think. And sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. Sometimes actually that's great, so can we punch up the first ones to kind of make them a joke, or actually do we move that payoff earlier and then have another payoff later? Do you know what I mean? So you can kind of so there's lots of that kind of.
And the longer you sort of leave between it, I suppose, with the payoff specifically, like, because you can do a setup and then pay it off in the next few lines, right? But it's much more effective if it's done in the first act. But then it's not effective if no one remembers.
Well, deep callbacks. They're what you're always looking for. They're fickle things.
Deep
callback. They're great when they land. So it's rewarding when something that you set up an hour ago comes back in the perfect way. But they're hard to pin down, hard to get right there.
Well, that's often why you need like moment 1, moment 2, moment 3, big payoff, because you need the 3 in order to have it.
Like lodged in your mind.
Learnt it.
I've definitely been in the room, like reading stuff with you guys, and then just read a line and been like, what? And then just be like, oh yeah, it's on page 1. You said this. It was like, I did not get that.
Yeah.
There's a script for a new thing, which I don't think we're allowed to talk about yet, which we're doing a read later today. And there was a joke in the first read. This is the second read today, and the first read that we did.
Which joke
the
is
bridges
this?
thing, which I think is a good example of bridges. There's a joke about bridges, which I won't say because I don't want to spoil it. It's a terrible anecdote because I can't give you any of the detail. But
there's a thing about some stuff that was great.
There's a joke about. Well, I can tell you this joke. I can tell you the one joke. Yeah. So the joke is that someone is afraid of heights, and they keep sort of saying, "Oh, there's a problem, and I've moved to a bungalow. I can't go upstairs anymore." And then someone says, "This is fine. Don't worry about that. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." And they say, "I can't cross bridges." That's the first joke. And then later on, someone says that they play bridge, the card game, and he goes, It's just because the word bridge made him jump. But it is, which is kind of, but that was an example where it was half an hour later or something, and just the word bridge wasn't enough to get people to remember it, I don't think.
Yeah, which, have we rewritten that yet?
Not yet.
No, it's still in.
I read that bit last night and was just like, still there, man.
It's a very good gag. I think we need to probably let that one go, or come up with a better way of bringing it back.
Or bring the bridges closer together.
Exactly. Close together.
Bridge that gap.
You got to bridge that gap.
Yes.
But that's a really good example that actually and again, you only discover that from being in front of an audience, that like actually a setup might really land with an audience in the first half that you didn't expect, and then you can go, oh, we can push the payoff for that way back because people are really holding on to that. And then I suppose, as you were saying, Shields, earlier, like there's stuff that you go, oh man, this is gonna be so good, and then people are like, what? And that must be a really kind of, actually, I wonder how that feels for you guys, because I think for me it would feel like really helpful, kind of relief of just being like, oh, okay, we know that doesn't work, rather than it sort of works.
There's a little bit of, oh, it's a shame. I remember another one from this thing that we can't talk about, was one of the characters saying, he makes an entrance at the wrong time, and then goes, "Oh, sorry, I've done that again. I struggled to walk and think at the same time."
Yeah.
Which I thought was a brilliant line.
Yeah,
Hey,
yeah.
that's really funny. You can't walk and think. But we did that in the read. No one even tittered. There wasn't even a smile. No one noticed it was a joke.
Maybe just because the character's so... It's just like, yeah, that's fair. It's
Yeah,
quite
I think
factual.
everyone just kind of went, "Oh, he struggles to walk and think."
Yeah, that's a real shame.
That's hilarious. Someone who can't think while they're walking, they have to stop and then think. And then move again.
And then, but it's good that you don't have to think. Yeah, thinking that I'm really struggling to even imagine how that would work.
Yeah, it tickles me. But,
Yeah.
But it didn't. I think that might be cut now.
It didn't land.
Yeah.
It didn't land. No, I've definitely been the spearhead of a lot of new gags that have not landed. And there's that kind of one. I think I talk about it a lot as well. And I imagine you guys, I wonder, again, I'm speaking from an actor's perspective, but I wonder how it feels as a writer. Like, I'll go out and do a joke that I really believe in, or even if I don't, it's just I think it's the trust that we have with each other to be like, oh, I trust that someone will just really go for it and give it the best shot I can. And if that person can't make it funny, then it's not a funny joke. And I've definitely but I personally now I've got to the stage, maybe with experience, that I just find it quite amusing that I've felt, all of us on stage have felt the rhythm and the punchline is landed. We're waiting for that laugh, and then just catching. I remember me and you, Shields, there was a joke we did years ago in Play That Goes Wrong that got cut, and we just held eye contact for like 3 seconds. We were like, the laugh is not coming.
Was that
That was the sour gag.
Truly Exposed?
No, Truly Exposed.
Truly
that
Exposed
was
one.
That was also one. Yeah, you've been exposed. Truly
we all found it
Exposed.
so funny.
It was funny, yeah.
And
But-
And then
the
it became a
moment-
new joke between us because
Yeah.
we were like, this joke is not working.
Yeah, and we were all looking at each other on stage going, "Wow, we really just threw a joke out there, and the audience just watched it land on the floor and said nothing."
And then we start laughing.
We went, "Oh,
Yeah.
we've made a mistake."
And I remember Hen desperate for us to cut it, but we wouldn't let you cut it because we loved it. And you were like, no. I like, as a writer and artistic director of the company, we have to get rid of this gag.
Did we take it out? We did take it out.
We
in
did
the
take
end.
it out. We have to
Yeah.
explain what this is for people who don't know.
So in the Play That Goes Wrong, there's a line about Florence, you've been exposed.
Yeah.
And she's obviously,
She's been
the dress has been taken by Annie.
Yeah.
So she's in her underwear, and so she's been exposed. That's the joke. And then but in the original version, we said
Said it twice.
just said it's right. But I don't necessarily repeat, really. Yeah, just truly
You
exposed.
said, "You finds you've been exposed." Big laugh. Truly exposed. Silence.
Yeah. And it was just like a double down on the same joke, but we loved it. And we kept it in for a really long time. And then
Now
we were
that's
like,
in our vernacular as a company. Truly exposed.
I know we're saying often.
I also say, I answered a Twitter
Quoting a joke
question the other day.
Quoting a
Which,
joke
not
that
even-
no one liked.
Yeah.
Did not laugh.
I mean, it was a weird one. I think it was like, I think that was like showed us being less experienced as writers, because I think we didn't trust that they would get it the first time.
yeah.
We were like, oh, we'll have to really say that again.
Yeah.
To make sure.
Say it again. to
Yeah,
make
we
sure
really
they understand.
they get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose it's the joy of sometimes you get the double laugh where you get like, you'll get the exposed, and then someone will say truly exposed, and you'll get an unexpected, you'll be like, oh, that wasn't even a joke, but like, great. But then sometimes the worst thing, I think, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, but as writers, like, when annoyingly, as an actor, it's very annoying when you get the laugh on the setup line, and then in that 1.5 seconds you could go, oh fuck, the punchline is not as good as the setup.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I to this day, well, I mean, I haven't done it in a long time, but in the Play That Goes Wrong, the opening speech, the joke that is the hardest one is James, where's your peach?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's James and the Giant Peach, but there's a spoiler for people who haven't seen that show, but it's a tiny joke. They're doing James and the Giant Peach, they lost the peach, so they have to rename the show James, Where's Your Peach? Problem is, when you're delivering that line, there's obviously a natural pause between James and Where's Your Peach.
Yeah.
But if you say James, the audience thinks that's the joke. The joke is you've taken out and the Giant Peach, it's just James. And they laugh there, and then there's no laugh for Where's Your Peach?
Yeah.
So it's a really tricky one to pitch. You have to say James with the right intonation that they know there's more,
Yeah.
and then hold Where's Your Peach?
There's nothing worse than James, hold for the laugh, where's your peach? Hold for the laugh, nothing.
But that doesn't happen.
Yeah. You just kill that momentum. But it's really interesting, I think, finding the because there's sort of several stages, isn't there? There's the stage that like where the play kind of exists in your guy's head, right? Or the joke exists in your guy's head. Then it exists on the page. Then when you give it to some actors, it exists for them, right? It no longer is in your control. And then when the actors go on stage in front of an audience, then the audience are in charge of it. And then so it's like even further removed from your control. And so I wonder how like you were saying earlier, Shields, like, oh, I know what it's like in my head. Then the skill is translating that on the page. But then there is a point where you can do no more. And I wonder what that feeling from writing it on the page to the workshop where the actors are taking it to then out to the audience. Do you sort of, is there a kind of release after a while where you're like, we can't do any more for this show?
Yeah, I suppose there is.
Quite a philosophical question.
Yeah, I think there's always more to do. The saying goes that you're never done writing comedy because you can rewrite forever, especially with a joke with a show like this that's got 1,000 jokes in it. I don't know how many. Lots and lots and lots of jokes.
1,000 jokes?
More than 1,000, I guess.
More than 1,000?
If you were being precise with the number of actual
more than
funny
1,000 laughs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when there's that many jokes, you can always make one better. You know, there's always a better punchline.
Yeah.
So you're never done writing it, and eventually you have to let it go. But I think because of the nature of it, and like you say, you've described it well, I think that it goes from your mind to the page, to the actor, to the audience, this long tunnel of, you know, making the sausage thing. That's why you have to kill your darlings. That's why you have to be so very ready to let go of stuff all the time. You can't write jokes like you're sort of a carpenter crafting a beautiful wooden box.
Yeah.
You know, you can't be that precious with it. It has to be that you throw them out there, and some of them live, some of them die.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, I think. But it comes, like, with each stage, it comes more into focus, I think. Like, at the beginning, it's sort of in your head, but it's kind of, you've kind of got the idea of it, but it's like it's far away, and it's sort of, the vision of what it is like far away and a bit foggy, and you're kind of like, well, it's over there. You know,
I think it's a gag.
Just squinting at it, yeah. And then and then you sort of write it down, and you get a bit more of a clear idea of like, okay, this is the shape of it, this is how it works, and this is all the detail and that stuff. And then you redraft it, it gets a bit clearer. You get it in the room, gets a bit clearer still. Get an audience, gets a bit clearer. You know what I mean? Until it's hopefully something that is, in clear focus.
I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel with this show more than any other, slightly in the woods with it.
Yeah.
Where it's such a big show and there's so much packed into it that I don't feel like I can see the whole thing at any time.
Yeah. No, it is a big.
I can see bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
You can see individual scenes, but I can't get the whole thing in my head.
There's something particular about the again, not to give too much away, but there's one set in the show where all I'll say is that you can't see all the other actors when you're in this set. And that's a weird thing for that, where it's like because you kind of are not literally in the woods, but do you know what I mean? You literally can't see the whole thing in terms of what's happening. You can only see your bit of it. Yeah, and that's a weird sensation that we've not had before in a show. And so I think that gives the sense of like, you're sort of you feel like you're doing your bit, but you're not quite sure how it fits into.
Changed it, didn't we? In the workshop, we ended up doing a mark out on the floor so that we could all see each other.
Yeah, we had to move things around because it was so difficult just as performers to perform a very long, very complicated scene where you can't see or hear the other performers properly.
Not being able to hear was a big thing.
That was really tough. Hopefully that will be solved with some cleverly hidden speakers. I
also think like it's a thing that I think really works. The chemistry that we kind of have as a company from having worked together for such a long time. Like I totally just disregarded that. I think in my head that I can hold my line, or I can move on a certain line, or I can do something with myself as an actor to facilitate someone else's joke. And that might just be standing still and looking at the joke. It's something very, very simple. But I can also tell from you guys, because I've worked together with you for so long, the kind of like those million microtransactions that happen between us in those moments where we go, Hen's pausing here, or he's coming in, or like Shields is moving. Because once that's taken away, it's just a bunch of actors staring out at the audience, squinting, just trying to like hear the next line, and then it just sort of becomes. It's like you guys have written the perfect scene to just remove our superpower of like
it is, isn't it? It's
knowing each other really well.
It's really tough. It's not gonna be fun to perform that scene, I don't think.
Yeah,
it's very good from the outside. I like having watched it back on video. Yeah, it looks amazing. It's so impressive. But as a performer, it's really, really tough.
Yeah, you're sort of in the trench a little bit.
And there's times when, something's happening on the other side of the stage that you can't see or hear, and the direction will be You need to very slowly pick up this prop, walk over there, put it down, do not draw any attention to yourself, and then sit and then look at the floor over there. And you'll do that for 6 months of this run, and you'll never know why. But it's feeding something on the other side of the stage. But you just got to do it.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much, guys. We're going to bring this to a close now, but I've got one question I kind of want to ask everyone. So, Henry Lewis, we'll start with you.
Yeah.
If you could spy on anyone in the world.
If I could spy on anyone in the world.
Yeah, who would it be?
Oh
and
goodness.
Obviously, I appreciate this. This could be a sinister question, so let's keep it light. And assume you're not going to get caught.
So I'm not going to get caught. I mean, anyone in the world. It's such a huge pool of people. I don't know who would. I don't know. I mean, I suppose I'm quite interested in in sort of space and stuff.
Sure.
So if there was a scientist or someone doing kind of,
I'm going to give you NASA.
in NASA as a person,
You could spy on NASA.
all of that. Yeah. So being in that kind of environment would be quite cool. I think.
Yours is less spying and more just sort of observing proxy.
Observing, yeah. But
Yeah,
I would. I love the idea. I occasionally do it as a writer. You observe stuff, and I love that. I really love going into sort of someone's kind of wherever they work or wherever they kind of do whatever they do, and see how they operate and just see a different.
Yeah.
It's completely different. But when we were in New York, when we did Play That Goes Wrong, we got to go and see. Sitting on the front page meeting at the New York Times, and that was absolutely fascinating to see them talk about what was going to be the front page story. And
Wow.
that was really interesting, cool. Things like that. They're sort of very interesting to be a fly on the wall. So yeah, even just kind of sort of. I'm really trying to. I quite want to write a comedy series about a local museum. My mum volunteers, and her partner work at this local museum. So I'm trying to convince them to let me to go and be a fly on the wall in one of their meetings.
They're too scared. They're too scared you're going to turn them into gags.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I promise not to.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. Henry Lewis wants to spy on journalists. At the New York Times. Watch out, journalists.
Yeah, it is
Henry Lewis is watching you. And what about you, Shields?
I mean, I would love to be able to spy on, Area 51 or the Pentagon, that kind of thing.
Sure, yeah, I'll give you that.
Because I feel like there's aliens.
There's
I feel like
something
there's
there.
aliens in
Yeah,
there
yeah.
somewhere. I'd love to be able to poke around.
Yeah. Or they're making it all up in order to just sell merch.
Which, in its own way, would be fascinating to know.
Yeah. But guys, there's no aliens. They're just trying to get you to buy T-shirts.
Yeah, but I want to know. Yeah,
Sure.
I'd spy there if I could.
I have just thought of an alternate question as well. Which member of Mischief would you want to spy on?
My goodness.
Again, non-sinister.
It's tricky, isn't it? Because there's got to be someone who you think's got secrets in some way that are interesting.
I 100% would spy on Jono.
Yeah.
Would
I
you?
just want to know what he's doing when he's not around me.
I feel like
just
when
in his
I feel
day-to-day.
like John is doing the same thing regardless.
Yeah, but I think I would, regardless, I find him as a human so amusing. Or Harry Kershaw, actually.
Harry Kershaw. would be fun to
Just
spy
watching Harry Kershaw on his own.
Yeah,
in a
I bet that would be funny. And I'd want to spy on Harry Kershaw so that I could burst out at Harry Kershaw. and
Yeah, so
scare
you
him.
could scare him.
That would be fun.
I'll give you that as well. You're allowed to
That'd be
do
really
that
funny.
for sure.
Yeah.
I'd probably spy on Greg. I feel like
Oh,
Greg's
yeah, what's Greg got
fascinating.
going on?
If anyone's got secrets, it's Greg.
Yeah.
He would either be either would be super secret, or, in some crazy revelation, or it would just be very wholesome. And I think both would be good.
Yeah. Like Greg is either really just lovely, he goes home, does some knitting, or he goes home and powers down.
Yeah.
And you're like, is Greg what? Greg's hooking himself up to a big battery. What's going on here? Greg is relentless. Well, thank you very much, Henry Shields and Henry Lewis, writer of new hit comedy, let's hope, the Comedy About Spies. Would you like to tell us when it's on? Hen, what theatre is it on? What date?
It's at the Noël Coward Theatre, previews from the 14th of April. And we're very excited because we've just announced that we're extending actually through the summer. So we run until the beginning of September.
Fantastic. Well, that's all, folks. Thank you for listening to Mischief Makers. I've been joined by
Henry Lewis.
and
Henry Shields.
with me, Dave Hearn. Have a lovely day. Good night, folks.
Is it day or night in your imaginary world?
I've covered both possibilities. Good afternoon, good morning, good dusk.
Good dusk, everybody.
Good night, good dusk, everybody. Bye.